Imagine the incredible. The modern battalion of the IDF suddenly finds himself in the 13th century, during the siege of Jerusalem by the troops of the great Muslim rulers, led by Saladin. Around, wooden siege machines, firing from bows, swords, and spears, and the soldiers themselves have machine guns, modern combat equipment, and technology. What would they do? How would the course of history change? What difficulties await soldiers from the 21st century in the Middle Ages? Let's go through this interesting script together. Suddenly, during the usual teaching, the battalion of the IDF was in the very heart of the Middle Ages, in the besieged Jerusalem of the 13th century. Bonfires are burning, combat shouts are heard, the air is saturated with dust and fear. The battalion commander raised his hand to bring his people to attention. Tired but ready, fighters dealt with a new reality. They were dressed in body armor, helmets, grenades, walkie-talkies. Additional stores are attached to the armor, in backpacks of dry soldering and additional ammunition in bulk. Some have grenade launchers and machine guns. But there are stone walls, wooden bastions, horsemen in ringles, and knights with crosses on shields. The battalion quickly took up a circular defense from the outside of the city, with the walls which they looked at them, dumbfounded wars and helmets in the morning rays. The first clash was instant. Saladin archers brought down a hail of arrows, but the soldiers of the Impaled confidently reflected the onslaught. Streets from grenade launchers were eager for impact on siege machines, destroying instantly. The flurry of the fire of which the machine gunners frightened the advancing cavalry of Saladin and drained hundreds of wars of the desert. But the modern battalion also had problems. The cartridges were quickly exhausted, the radio silent, the system satellites did not find a signal. The fighters who came from another time had to save cartridges. They had nowhere to replenish ammunition in the conditions of the Middle Ages. The defenders of the city, like Saladin's wars, could not believe what they saw. For them, it seemed to be some kind of magic or a devilish manifestation. Crusaders, covered with blood and dust, squeezed the strained swords and spears. It was as if they were facing a miracle, a sudden hope that the force, which came from another life, was able to break the siege chains. But caution fought in their hearts. Who are these people? Are they friends or new trials? It seemed that the air around was filled with a tense expectation, as in front of a thunderstorm. Pilgrims and monks began to pray. The army of Saladin hastily departed from the city to understand what was happening and what kind of force came to the aid of Christians besieged in the city. When the fighters of the IDF entered the battle, the fire escaped from their weapons, cutting the darkness of the besiegers. The roar and outbreaks of the battle enveloped the walls, and in the center of chaos, the darkness of despair weakened. The warriors of Jerusalem felt inspiration, the resurrection of forces which they had long forgotten. Among the troops of Saladin, fatigue and anxiety reigned. Pictures were going day after day, and the walls of Jerusalem seemed to be about to fall. But demons who appeared at the walls of the city changed the scales of the scales in this battle. Their entire work of his army may be in vain. Several times Saladin sent his wars to storm unknown wars, that it was people who was convinced when one of the wars who practically broke into the location of the IDF and miraculously saved after that, said that he saw the wounded doctors. Archers did not give their bread for nothing and were able to get several unknown wars. The commanders of Saladin looked at the battlefield in the battlefield. They knew it was necessary to change tactics, look for a weak place in these strange warriors. But every time it seemed that it was possible to break through, the enemy line was restored faster and stronger than before. In the early morning, the roar of unprecedented animals broke the silence. From behind the hills there came a fog, a thick veil of smoke and dust. Among the gray clubs, silhouettes of unknown creatures arose. Saladin's soldiers froze in bewilderment, lifting look to the sky. The earth trembled with a muffled roar of engines. Unintelligent creatures appeared from the darkness. Huge metal monsters crawled on the ground, releasing streams of fire and death. The sky was cut through the shadows of strange insects, circling over the heads of the defenders and loudly buzzing. Quadricopter and unmanned aerial vehicles were not seen here before. The archers powerlessly lowered the bow, watching the lightning flashed from the tip of the mysterious weapon. The army of Saladin froze, looking helplessly at the aliens. Their eyes widened with horror, realizing the meaninglessness of resistance. The wars of deserts in heavy armor threw shields and rushed away. The horses rushed in fright, dropping the riders to the ground. Rifle lines instantly collapsed, turning into chaos of retreat. Crossbacks ceased to act, thrown to the ground along with helmets and shields. The commander tried to collect the remains of disciplined detachments, but in vain. The noise of the battle was replaced by the cries of running soldiers who were distraught with fear of incomprehensible force. Metal monsters continued to move forward, not meeting resistance. Time seemed to froze when incredible technologies have encountered the ancient way of waging war. No one was able to withstand the clash of the past and the future. After a lightning attack, the warfare war took up defense on the territory of the former camp of Saladin's troops. They did not immediately notice how thick fog fell into the battlefield. A few moments passed, and the residents of the city saw how the wars, and the wars who came to the aid of the defenders of the holy city, also disappeared along with the fog. But the army of Saladin was already far away. It is unlikely he will soon gather it again for the siege of Jerusalem. Residents, hiding behind the fortress walls, first froze in bewilderment. Their eyes, tired, exhausted, rushed to the strange wars whom the fog enveloped, and something from fear flashed in those eyes, from hope and from unbelief at the same time. Mothers pressed the children to themselves, whispering prayers as if calling an invisible angel, searching for the divine light of the appearance of these strangers, or a sign. But the fog melted, and unknown wars with him. Thank you for watching to the end. I liked the story. Like and subscribe. And if you didn't like it, put your finger to the bottom. It's not difficult for you, but I am pleased that my efforts were appreciated to make an interesting alternative story. Good luck until new meetings.